This election marks the first time Wenatchee has voted for its city council members to represent 5 distinct districts. But this year, one seat is up for an at-large election. Incumbent council member Linda Herald and challenger Jorge Chacon both hope to win election to that seat. Whoever earns the at-large post, they'll have to help steer Wenatchee through an ongoing crisis of housing availability and affordability and find ways to shore up the city against a changing climate.
Well, I've lived here as of this month 40 years, with a short stay in Chelan for 2 years, and I've been here the rest of the time. I've raised my 2 sons here. This is where I met my husband David, and we've lived here ever since. I've been very involved in business here. I'm the general manager of the Wenatchee Convention Center, and there primarily I oversee the staff, and I also do sales for bringing in conferences as well. And for the past 8 years I have served as a city council member and enjoyed that very much.
We've been here, my wife and I and our kids, since 1995 from Seattle. I'm proud to say that I'm a Vietnam veteran, 2 terms in country. And proud of that. I volunteered. I felt that it was my duty, even though I knew what was happening here in the States. But I felt that it was my duty, not an obligation. And as far as the things here in Wenatchee, I've been involved in being in many ways the voice of the people. I have a business. I'm a counselor, therapist by profession. I have a doctorate degree. I'm also a visiting professor at the University of Washington. And been involved in mental health has been my profession. My entire life has been public mental health.
There are 2 at-large positions. The 2 of you are running for one of those. You'll be representing the whole city. You're asking for the votes from South Wenatchee all the way to Sunny Slope. How does that affect the way you would see your role as a council member, Jorge, if you were elected?
Mm-hmm. You know what? I see that as an opportunity for me, okay, to be and this might sound kind of corny when I say it, but I'm committed to be the Apple Plus voice of Wenatchee, for the people of Wenatchee. And that's the way I see myself, in being accessible, making myself known, and to be there knocking on doors and gathering small groups so that I can then listen to their, not only to the things they see as wonderful here in Wenatchee, but also to hear their concerns. And to be truly a representative of those concerns. Because I believe that as a council member, that my primary job is to represent the people, and second, the city.
Well, for me, this is nothing new, because our positions on the council have been at large up until this year. I feel it's really important to have district representatives because they know what's going on in that neighborhood. But I also feel it's very important to have at-large candidates. And the reason for that being is someone has got to focus on the big picture. Someone has got to keep their eye on that. And we represent all of the city. It doesn't matter what section of town you live in. Even though you're representing a district, you need to be aware of what's going on in the others. And this will just kind of give that balance on the council with 2 at-large positions, I feel. So it's very important to have that. And you do it because you care. It's just simply it.
People, when they have brought your concerns to you, or when they've asked you where you stood on a certain topic, what are the concerns they're bringing to you? What are they asking you to address if you're elected?
Well, the top things I'm hearing right now are affordable housing. The average person who is making, say, less than $61,000 or less in this climate will never be able to buy a home. And we're very limited on housing. The price of land within Wenatchee is going sky high because we're running out of land. We're very landlocked. So finding a solution to that, working with our city codes, working with our state and federal representatives to get those codes in place and to protect those people so that we can afford to build lower income housing. That's the most important thing I see that I'm hearing about. There's also a lot of concern about homelessness, and I'm hearing that loud and clear. And while homeless overall is down, chronic homelessness is up 56%. So we got to find a way to reach these people and work with them to get them into services to help them get re-educated and take care of their mental health issues, and so that they can become productive citizens and have a life where they're supporting themselves and not living off of the streets.
Affordable housing is truly an issue, and that goes along the homeless individuals, the issue of homeless. What I've heard, so many times is that when individuals are asked to vacate a home, an apartment, then they're basically homeless. And so we need to, that's an issue that is, I think, a major concern for everybody. But there are solutions. I truly believe that there are solutions in bringing all those individuals that are involved and come up, step out of the box and do some creative thinking. So that's one of the major things. The other thing that I've heard is property. When streets are built, especially at the north end. There's many neighborhoods that are very unique, and they don't want to have their streets narrowed or widened. They just don't, because they feel that that there's a place for uniqueness here in Wenatchee. So that's another issue that surprised me. That people are concerned with, as far as when it comes to their property. So that was an insight for me.
Are there specific steps you can think of that the city should take to ensure that kind of affordability and availability of living space?
I think it's so important, for us to step out of the box and not to look at things in the very traditional way. Things are changing. Our space here in Wenatchee is limited. So that means that we have to look at Wenatchee in a very different way. Creating a single homes, well, that was the past. Now it's the future, and there's going to be an incredible growth here in another 5 years here in Wenatchee. So we need to look at ways that other countries have, and I'm not saying that it needs to be done immediately. There needs to be a lot of planning. Okay, as far as how we then can provide housing for those individuals, because you're correct. Like 58% of families cannot afford to buy a home. I mean, that's a high percentage, for individuals not to buy a home, and that's part of the American dream, right? To buy a home and gosh, well, what else can I say as far as that? Okay, but I think that there are solutions, but we need to look at it from a different perspective.
It's a very philanthropic thing to do, but maybe we create land trusts. This was suggested to me by a gentleman here in the company, in the city, that if we did this, then it would be cheaper for the builders to build lower affordable houses rather than doing what they're currently doing. But we definitely need to work with them to find out what their needs are and what we can do to keep these costs down, because it's only going up and up and up. It's become a really serious problem. I have a family member who's living in a motel right now. Her husband makes a decent living, and he can afford to pay the rent, but they can't find a place to rent. Overall, our vacancy rate in Wenatchee is about 1% to 2%. It fluctuates a little bit, but there's just no availability, and what is out there is very expensive. On the city level, we have been working with developers to provide incentives so that they can build and save money so that maybe their costs aren't as expensive. Catholic Charities is building some low-income housing on the south end. I think that's going to help. But it's going to continue to be a problem because we have so many people moving in here. We've kind of been discovered and we've become a retirement community almost, but there are a lot of people moving in, and a lot of people that are working through the internet and everything. Their companies are based in Seattle, but they're working here through that way. And so it's just going to continue to grow. We're having some serious growing pains, and it's an issue that we have to focus on, we have to address very quickly.
So what should Wenatchee be doing, Linda, in your opinion, to prepare itself for harsher summers and wetter winters?
Well, and this is going to continue with global warming and everything. It's a very serious problem. The city and the county have been working together, and I know the county has put some things in place to address the flooding. Part of the problem I see is that many of the homes, the drain lines that they have or the pipes that are going through their property, that where the water will run through it, is they're plugging up and then it's overflowing and going down the street. So that's a problem, but we have to continue to address those issues. I know the last torrential rainfall, we flooded out the convention center, our orchard room. So it's a problem, and we're going to have to continue to work on those items.
We need to have a solid, thoughtful plan and strategies to address those areas. You know, as far as the fires, the smoke issue that we have here, I was surprised that there was very little the city was doing to alert the population. Very little. I was totally amazed and surprised. Okay? See, and that's part of the lack of a solid infrastructure. And when I say infrastructure, it has to do with everything. Okay? There has to be then, when it comes to flooding, when it comes to, because all those are going to happen again. But darn it, we have the brains to, but also we need the involvement of people, for people to let us know what is it that they want. See, that's the first thing I think we need to do. Okay, is to have a clear connection with the people of Wenatchee. And I think that's one of the things that's missing in that infrastructure right now. Yeah. And that infrastructure, if we're using the resources adequately and in a very thoughtful way, we can improve what we have.